I'm Candice Fogolin. I'm here with Michael Phinney, President and CEO of Phinney Real Estate. Mike, let's just jump right in. So Canadian Real Estate Association kind of said a lot of supply to start the year in January, not as much demand. Where do you see the market right now?
Well, a lot of that supply right now is the condo market. So I think the numbers are skewed a bit because of the amount of condos that are currently on the market. A lot of investors got out of the market just because interest rates and carrying costs and rent wasn't supporting having them as an investment. So I'm starting to slowly see the condo market pick up some because there is a lot of supply in that part of the market. Now, the detached market, I feel, has had a bit of a pause recently because of the tariff talks, and people are kind of seeing what that's going to do to the economy. I think as we come into March and we start getting into better weather and we start getting into the spring season, it naturally just picks people up to wanting to do things. I'm not just going to wait around
Right. I think there's always going to be serious buyers out there, so it doesn't really matter, the state of the market or the time of the year. There's still going to be people that are looking regardless.
Right.
And the Canadian Real Estate Association also was predicting maybe a bit hotter than usual spring because there has been all those buyers on the sidelines watching the rate drops and all that stuff. So do you foresee that happening? I mean, you kind of alluded to that maybe it's starting to change a little bit now anyways.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is March 12th, they're going to announce another rate drop. Whether it's a significant one or not, we'll see. I imagine it's just going to continue to have those drops, and we're going to start seeing people getting into the housing market again, like starting to jump back into it. Right now, just a combination of things. Like we got 61 centimeters of snow in the last 2 weeks. It's like people are just don't want to go out and see houses.
No, I don't blame them.
Right? and so as we start seeing okay, there's going to be a definite direction when it comes to tariff talks March 1st, they're saying. And then March 12th, if that's coupled with a rate drop, I feel like there should be some positive movement in the right direction again.
Yeah, I think so. And I think for buyers right now, we were talking a little earlier about how now's a really good time. If you are a serious buyer, you have been looking or waiting to maybe there's opportunities out there to make a move.
Yeah, 100%. I think right now, especially, people are getting the opportunity to do the building inspections, do financing clauses. We're starting to see more motivated sellers right now. So it is good for buyers in the market because I do foresee the March, April, May market starting to pick up to where you're going to see more competition in the market. I don't think it's going to get to a point this year where you're going to see bidding wars happening left. I've heard of some happening in the Toronto area again, but I don't foresee outside that a heavy demand. I guess price point specific, you might start seeing it in the detached market in the $1 million to 1.5 range. But I think people have breathing room right now, so it makes a lot of sense as a buyer to get into the market right now if you can.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be in less competition right now. You can have a little bit of that luxury of time to make a thorough decision. You have to jump in because you've got 10 other people breathing down your neck to get that same property. And also, like you said, the price point, I mean, if demand goes up, prices can increase, or you can get in multiple offer situations. So it's probably a good time to kind of...
I think the caveat for a lot of the people is I would love to buy right now, but then it means I have to try to sell my house. So it's really good if someone's not currently in the market and they're wanting to jump into the market. It gets a little tougher when you have a house to sell and you're kind of worried about whether that's going to happen. But I mean, there's been some positive stuff I've seen in especially in the good areas like Lauren Park, Old Oakville, Southeast Oakville, Mineola, Port Credit. You're starting to see if places are priced appropriately, they're moving.
Yeah, and that kind of transitions to what I was going to say is advice for sellers right now, because we are, and you touched on it, if it's priced correctly. I mean, we had a listing recently, I think it was in Applewood, that sold in multiple offers. So it is happening, things are happening, and you think, pricing it appropriately, and what other advice would you have for sellers right now?
Well, I think really understanding, like when you get a market evaluation and you sit down with that agent, a lot of times clients will want to try at a higher price point. Everyone wants more money for their house.
Of course.
But when you actually in this market price it accordingly, people go, oh my gosh, that's actually a good price for the house, and it can sell relatively quick. Where I still feel like there's a disconnect between sellers and buyers, where sellers are still wanting what you could have got during COVID.
Yeah.
And then you're in kind of in the long haul and you're playing catch up, where it's like a cancel relist, or you're bringing the price down, and then you've lost the big segment of the market that would be interested in buying your house. That usually happens in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So if you're kind of lost the first couple of weeks because you're priced too high, then those buyers are going out and buying other houses in the area.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it there too with the sellers' expectations, where there has been a lot of instances I find where sellers, they have that expectation of, well, this is what it would have been worth, 2 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
Or I think it's worth this, so this is what I want to list at. But you really have to list for where the market is.
Yeah,
right now.
well, and I see it a lot when I go on listing appointments, where people will reference their neighbor's house that sold in 2022 or 2021, and they're like, my house is so much better, how could it be worth less? And it's hard to fathom that in a couple of years it changed that much, because typically in real estate you have this steady climb up, right? And I feel like that's going to happen. This year we're going to start seeing price increases happen slowly, but that initial jump that we saw during that time period, we're not going to see anything like that for, I might not see it in my lifetime again, where houses went up 40%. Like, it was ridiculous, right?
Yeah,
so
I think, and that's just, everyone has to just temper their expectations to where we are, and that was just kind of an anomaly and a phenomenon that kind of happened, and it's not going to necessarily ever get to that again. So, and then shifting to our brand, how would working with us as a team with one of our agents really give a buyer or a seller leverage in this market?
Well, a lot of times when the market's slower, we ended up pumping out more advertisement. Like, I look at our expenses year to year, and when the market's fluid, we're not having to do as much marketing as we do when the market's slower. Like last year, for example, houses generally took longer to sell than it did, the year before. And we're in print, we're in digital, we're into staging the house so it looks the best in its best light. Our team does a really good job at, especially the ones that I've been on, is giving an in-depth analysis of what the house is worth and handling the client's expectation. Unfortunately, where we sell real estate, it's a competitive environment, and a lot of times you'll have agents that just, for lack of a better term, are trying to buy the listing. So they'll say, a house that's worth 1.7, they'll say, I think you can get $2 million for your house. When they know that's not realistic, they get their sign on the lawn, and then 30 days later they're saying, hey, I think it's time now, we should reduce the price. And so it's a steady conversation that they're having with the client. We like to take the approach of, let's get it right from the beginning, and we work from there. And then sometimes there's no rhyme or reason. Like, you could price a house, like, I'm not saying that just pricing a house accordingly, it will sell. Like, there's times we have, we were just discussing, we have listings and we're like, it's priced accordingly, and, unfortunately we're not getting the traction. So then we have to go back to the drawing board and say, is there any marketing initiatives that we can do? Should we think about doing an open house this weekend? Should we do another agent open house? Right?
Yeah, I think we're all very, like, everyone on this team is very good at just how can we make this work for the client? How can we make this property sell? And like you said, sometimes it's just the market. So okay, what do we have the power? Do we have control over that we can change? And sometimes it is, the market's shifting, or it's just a tough condo market, and it's trying to find that sweet spot. But we're always kind of try to be as creative as possible, whether it's marketing or pricing, and just our network as a whole, the people we know. Sometimes there's, if we have buyers, there's off market listings that we know of. Our network is very vast too.
Right. And we're fortunate. Like, my mother started in the business when I was 2 years old, and we have a client base of over 16,000 clients in our database. So we naturally have that advantage. We have a team of 26 sales reps, and we're all working together to get the houses sold. At the end of the day, people are covering for open houses. People are showing a lot of our listings. So, we did definitely have that advantage when you're in a slower market right now. And then it's just getting the right advice. Like, there's times where I will say, you might be the seller and you might say, hey, I want to go on the market right now. And I'll say, well, let's pump the brakes a bit and see if it might be better for us to go on in a few weeks or once the announcements are done and things like that, where, a lot of agents, they want the inventory right now. Yeah. So they're just giving the advice that's most beneficial to them. Right. So we always try to gear our clients in the best light when it comes to selling their house. And that means taking the audience approach, not what's necessarily best for us. Right.